Welcome to Song Album Career. I'm Chris Bragg, and with me, as always, is David Thurmaier. And today we're going to talk about a very recent album from a great artist. It's one of the main pop composers of the day, I would say, probably. And that's Sufjan Stevens and his album, The Ascension. So, Dave, where do we want to start with?
Wow. Why did we pick this one again? It's 81 minutes long, and it's a double album.
Wow. Yeah, it's basically a double album. I don't think it was billed as a double album at all, and I'm not sure. That's the interesting thing is, do people even talk about double albums or single albums or
that's
anything
a really good,
like that anymore?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you buy the LP, by the vinyl, which I see back in your room there, and I have it here as well. It is a double album, but because everything is streaming now too, it's kind of all one continuous album. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a good question, especially when we get into the heart of this one. I feel like a lot of it is kind of seen as one big musical work. It doesn't seem like it's divided up as like the Beatles' White Album or Blonde on Blonde or something like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that you have pieces within the album that really are there for the album and not necessarily standalone tracks that work on their own. But Dave, even if this was a single album, it is a lot. It is chock full of stuff to talk about, and why we picked this to be I don't know what order you're watching this show in, but this is the first album we chose to do for
all downhill from here. I guess it's going to be much easier from now on.
Oh boy. Yeah, it is just it's intense, and it's very much full of stuff to discuss. So one of the big things I wanted to bring up for you first here, Dave, is instrumentation.
Yeah.
So instrumentation is very important on this album. Now, Sufjan's always been, other than maybe Carrie and Noel and perhaps some of his early work, very dense, like a lot of stuff going on. Now, in earlier albums like Illinois, Michigan, Seven Swans, it would be more orchestral, with a lot of percussion and stuff like this.
Actual acoustic instruments.
Acoustic instruments. Yeah. Some in Illinois, there's a lot of banjo.
Yeah, I remember that.
Illinois and Michigan. Well, a lot of that's pushed to the side for this album. And this album, I think the closest comp album to this in Sufjan's back catalog is Age of Odds, which has a lot of this electronic instrumentation. But they use very specific electronics in this, Dave, and one of them is the Tempest.
It's very synth heavy, right? This whole album.
Yes. Yeah. So he uses all these instruments created by this guy, Dave Smith. And if you go on YouTube, and we'll have a link to this, Dave Smith Instruments, and you have an actual demo, I guess, of the Tempest analog, which the Tempest is used, I think, on every track, or almost every track of this album. He also uses a lot of the Prophet. So a lot of sampling, a lot of percussion through these electronic means, and it's very prevalent throughout the album.
Well, that's interesting. Because they're curious, they're retro synths. The Prophet, particularly, I was looking that up, and it was popular in the 80s and into the 90s. And it's very, like I told you before we started, there was a person recording the intro to Betty Davis Eyes, the great 80s song, and it was the exact sound that was on there, and it just fits so well. I read, when I was reading interviews or just discussions about this album, they were saying that Sufjan was really interested in Janet Jackson's 1989 album Rhythm Nation 1814.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did listen, I sampled a couple of the tracks on it, and I can see why. It's kind of mechanical, and I think these songs are very mechanical sounding. They're very electronic. They're very kind of disembodied voices. His voice just sort of sails in and out of a lot of tracks, and you've got this real, like you said, real busy background of these different synths going on.
Yeah.
And that it's such a difference from, you're much more of a Sufjan fan than I am, but the album I listened to constantly was Carrie and Lowell, which is not at all like this, nor are the songs from Call Me by Your Name, which were really popular as well. They're acoustic based, and so then this one comes out, it's like, wow, it's so synth heavy and mechanical.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that he can kind of somewhat seamlessly adjust his palette that he's using from something that's like completely acoustic to something like this album, which is very, very synth based. There's some guitars on it, and some, natural elements as well, but it was very atmospheric and not just from synths, but there's other ambient sounds in there, particularly the last 4 minutes of the last song, which I'm sure we'll get to in detail. But also a lot of processed vocals and a lot of vocals with a lot of echo and repetitive elements, and a lot of the backup vocals in previous albums. Great backup vocals, but sort of quote unquote normal backup vocals. Whereas these, they kind of swoop in and swoop out and swoop around, and it gives a very
it's sort of surreal or surreal. You mentioned that James McAlister is listed on a couple songs as doing vocal cut up effects.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're saying. So it reminds us of on Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles, where the laughs and the birds, those sound like the backward tape loops sort of pop in and out. And there is some of that in here as well.
The Age of Odds had some of that, and particularly the big piece at the end of that album, Impossible Soul, which if you haven't heard Impossible Soul, take a good 25 minutes out of your time and listen to it. It really is truly, I think, one of the great masterpieces of the 21st century. I know that's awfully big hyperbole, but I truly believe it's a tremendously great piece of work. And I enjoy it very much. Well, there are a lot of elements in that where it kind of has a lot of these kind of cut up kind of sounds, and a lot of different elements that you wouldn't expect come in and out, and so that it might be an early precursor to this piece of work. But this piece of work makes it I think a little difficult of a listen. It's not an easy listen. Now, we've done album reviews before for Beatles albums and Beatles solo catalog, and never had this kind of experience where I'm just like exhausted.
It's exhausting. Yeah. And part of it's the length, but I think it's more the sonics, because it's almost relentless. They're in the amount of layering and the amount of electronics and just the density of it. You get a few moments where it breathes, but a lot, it's just very I mean, it's gripping all the same. I'll say that there's a gripping sense to it, and it does keep you interested. It's never boring, but it's maybe until the end a little bit, but we'll get to a little track by track of this as we like to do on these albums. We'll give you some quick thoughts on each of the tracks here. But yeah, I think you're right. And you know what it kind of reminds me of, and I've never really thought about Sufjan Stevens in these terms before, because he is such a seemingly gentle, sensitive kind of like vocalist and lyricist, really highlighting beauty in the world generally. So I don't think of him necessarily as a one-to-one comp with this person. But I was watching
the which is now streaming on Hulu, the Zappa documentary
Oh yeah.
about Frank Zappa. And I thought about it, and I'm like, you know, it is a kind of a similar kind of career in that they kind of dance to the beat of their own drummer. They've done, you know, Sufjan has done many alternate kind of not in the catalog kind of albums of like the BQE, which is all instrumental, and Enjoy Your Rabbit, which I think is one of his early works, which is very like no singing. And actually his new next album is an 100% instrumental album called Convocations. He's got this side of himself that's just straight up composer.
Yeah, he works with a lot of classical composers too. There's a composer, Nico Muhly, who he's worked with several times. He has interests much bigger than just pop music, and I think it's apparent in his style of songwriting and kind of the conception of this album. I mean, already it's called The Ascension. That's a big thing. And I wonder, you know, we've talked before about Paul McCartney in Rock Down, what he did in Rock Down. Well, This is Sufjan's album in Rock Down too, more or less, of last year, came out in 2020. It's almost all reading the reason why this came about. I guess he was kicked out of he left his New York City apartment because it had rats and he had a bad landlord. And so he moved up to upstate New York somewhere, I think. And so in the middle of everything going on, and then to record so much of this by yourself with like you mentioned, the other musicians, Casey Foubert, and then James McAlister zooming in their contributions. So it's really kind of I wonder, like, thinking about it as just being kind of an individual, very much a solo album, but dealing with the situation that we're all in. I don't know. I thought a lot about that during this whole listening.
Yeah, and this comes on the heels being several years later.
Yeah.
But of Carrie and Lowell, which was a very meditative album upon the death of his mother. Now his own father passed away 2 days after the release of this album.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so I think that's sort of led to the next project, which is like an instrumental kind of thing, reflecting upon that. So I do think that, you know, what we get with Sufjan is he's a very emotional guy, I think.
Yeah.
However, this album, it seems to be a reflection upon more of his religious side. And it's not the first time, certainly, that he's brought up religion. No. By God, half of his catalog is Christmas albums.
Yeah.
You know,
you turned me on to that Christmas album a long time ago.
So
it's pretty great.
Love it so much. He is. If you haven't listened to his Christmas stuff, or you think Christmas songs are lame, try a few of them. Sister Winter is a great one, and the Christmas Unicorns, another excellent one. And these are new Christmas songs. He does a lot of the albums are kind of covers of, you know, "O Come All Ye Faithful" or whatever,
classics
like that. But boy, these new Christmas songs he wrote are really great too. So,
so really versatily talented, and but there's something different about this one. Maybe it is just the hugeness of it and the fact of how it was recorded and the instrumentation of it. But it feels like, wow, this is I don't know. It's a lot.
And it doesn't necessarily feel like he's grappling with his, like, having a crisis of conscience on his religion. I think he's truly a believer in Christianity and truly a Christian person, and always has been.
Yeah.
There is a sort of distance to the lyrics and an opaqueness to the lyrics that it makes it hard to really get the true meaning of each song. So that's also was a challenge I felt. Whereas, sometimes I guess we're used to doing Ringo albums where it's very obvious what he's trying to say.
Almost too obvious. Well, that goes to the point of, is this a double album or is it a single album, and how it all, like, you could put it on, not the record, obviously, because you have to get up and change it. But if you just put the streaming or a CD, it can just go. And there's not a break between a lot of the tunes either. It sort of just flows or like an electronic pad or something will drone through. And thinking of influences too. And this group also has the reputation of being a little mechanical or disembodied or cold mechanical sometimes, as Radiohead. I heard a real Tom York sort of aesthetic in here, with coming in and out and singing up high and the slow core. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see a little bit of that. And Radiohead's another group that, like, their early work is very like basic rock band kind of thing, and then around the time of Kid A, it like became a lot more of a getting electronic kind of, almost like dance beat type feel, which this definitely has in certain points. I did want to say that and I think as we go track by track here, we'll see that he does do a pretty good job of varying how he uses the electronic sounds. It's not like just one big long beat.
No.
Now side 3 maybe gets a little bit repetitive like that, but we'll get there. So it opens with a pretty great opener, I think, which is a track called "Make Me an Offer I Cannot Refuse." What's your take on that track?
Yeah, I think it's a great opener. It starts, it's pretty slow, kind of building type of song, showing me the face of the radical dream. There's no time for severance. There's no time for innocence. Was it all forgiven? Move like the ghost of a hazardous demon. It's just like there's a lot going on here, but I think it's a good opener.
Well, it sets up auditorily, it sets up the feel of the music, the sort of schizoid kind of beats that are going to happen. And then it's sort of Sufjan obviously has always been someone who has epic dynamics. And this one has a build sort of at the end where the pitch just keeps getting one higher, and you're wondering if it's going to blow the sky away, So but yeah, it's a very kind of uneasy, that line, "Make me an offer I cannot refuse," and it sounds like he's saying that to the Lord, so, sort of like hoping the Lord would show him the definite proof of these things he's talking about, deliverance and grace, and
that's interesting,
and asking him to move through him and give him the answers, kind of,
Can you do you think you can read a religious idea into almost every song on here? I mean,
I think so.
You think, even, well, we'll get to video game, but well, actually, I think there might be something there too. I'm looking at the lyrics here. I think there might be something.
I tried to see if there was non-religious connotations for certain about some tracks, and then you would like look at them with an eye of like, I mean, the album's named The Ascension.
Okay,
the
Ascension
is already got some heavy connotations to it.
Yeah,
which for those of you completely non-religious, The Ascension is what we celebrate Easter for, which is Jesus rising from death to heaven, having risen from the dead, resurrected, and then the ascension is actually him floating up to heaven. And I know, please, I by no means am I I did not go to seminary school or anything like that. So I'm
Father Bragg here.
Throughout the album, every track, and that's another thing about is the long album.
Yeah,
every single track I think has some kind of something or another to do with religion.
That would make sense. So it's kind of like it's almost like a communion or a church service or some kind of a sermon or something. Yeah, that actually would make it even hold together better if it's sort of tied together that way.
Yeah. And I think it does hold together pretty well. There are some there are some issues we'll get to, but first track, I'm all in.
Good.
It's fantastic. So really like the first track. And then we go into a slower track. I very much enjoy this one too, Dave. Run Away With Me.
Come run away with me.
Yeah. And he's using that prophet again, but it's a more gentle beat that sort of matches the music.
Yeah, this is a good one. You know, even with all the electronics around it, something that struck me about Carrion Lowell is the melodic. He does write very good melodic songs and knows how to write. That we'll certainly see that a couple times on this album, real catchy hooks. And this one, this is not like a beautiful melody or anything, but it's certainly memorable, and it's kind of you know, floating type of melody here. And now I'm seeing it everywhere here. And I will bring you life, a new communion, with a paradise that brings the truth of light within. I will show you rapture and a new horizon. Follow me to life and love within. Yeah. So Run Away With Me.
And in first listen, you're like, oh, it's a little love song or something.
Right, that's
but
what
once you dig into the lyrics, and you know, not every album has lyrics printed on the inner sleeve, but the inner sleeves of this one has all the lyrics right there. Even I Want to Die Happy has its one lyric written on there. You know, by the way, just absolutely stunningly beautiful and also complicated cover art.
Packaging.
A whole booklet of just like design, kind of like art design kind of stuff. Kind of looks a little bit like stained glass window there on the cover, Dave. So
I've not seen, you know, I read so many reviews of this. I've not seen a lot of people mentioning that as kind of a frame through which to understand it. They just complain, oh, it's too long or it's repetitive with the synths and all that. But no, okay, let's keep going with that theme. I like it.
Just a little more on Run Away With Me. I like the rhythm guitar licks there. That one's beautiful. And I love the swell of the sort of overlapping vocals at the end. It's really really kind of builds up into this kind of nice sort of, boy, he just like really gets you going with the atmospheric emotional kind of thing. It's what he does best. So
orchestrating.
Now here's the next one's been kind of a single that they played a lot, and there's a video for it, and that's Video Game. Dave, what's your take on Video Game?
Well, this really brings me back to the early 80s kind of very synthesized beat. Kind of the I don't know, Kraftwerk's music, but that's who I saw some people comparing this to. And it's very catchy. I had it in my head when I first listened to it. It would wake me up at like 3 a.m. and I'd hear, I don't want to be your personal Jesus. Some people would say it's slight. At least some of the reviews have said it's kind of slight, but that's okay. I think we could use a little bit of levity here.
Yeah, and it is the most it's the most like
poppy.
Single sounding.
Yeah, very poppy.
So it's easy to kind of like poo-poo it if you're like one of these diehard type fans. Like I generally tend to be a diehard fan of whoever I get into, and then tend towards liking the more obscure works of artists. So it's really when something's getting so much radio play or which, what does that even mean these days? That means on Sirius XMU it gets played a lot. So yes, I enjoy it. This one, it's probably not my favorite track on the album, but I think I like it, and I think there's something about it just mildly stiff.
It's the mechanical thing again. Kind of robotic.
But that matches the lyrics, which is I don't want to be this machine kind of video game. Want to, once again, personal Jesus, and there's you'll find those religious connotations in the lyrics.
Even I don't care if everybody else is into it. I don't care if it's a popular refrain. Yeah, I think you can.
Which, being a religious Christian, outwardly Christian man today is an unpopular thing, really, to be honest, and particularly in a musician who's trying to sell records. It's like the last thing you want to do is be called a Christian artist, because then you're getting Christian radio play and not an indie artist. So I like that there's space for him and his beliefs with recognizing that he's a great musician and a great artist, and it doesn't matter if he's Christian or not Christian. Or additionally, if you are Christian, maybe you should get into Sufjan Stevens heavily.
I think so. Yeah, there's a lot here. Definitely.
And I believe he produced an album of another Christian duo, and they sound so similar to his early work. I'll look that up and put a link to it, because it sounds so much like Sufjan's
his influence is there.
Influence, and all this hard to analyze every single lyric in the record as we talk through it, but definitely you'll want to check out the lyrics to this. Lamentations is next. There's a sample in Lamentations that I found very annoying at first. I don't know how you felt about it, Dave.
Would that be the cut up vocal effects, or
exactly?
Yeah.
But otherwise, other than that sample, I really like this one. I love the melody and the lyrics.
Yeah.
Particularly, I am the future, find the future. I
am the future, define the future.
Define the future,
yeah. It very nice. I mean, I'm thinking again, religious era, Lamentations. That's going back to the Renaissance, or going back to medieval days, a lament for death and sorrow. And here we are again. So I like it. The vocal cut ups that do get a little bit irritating, especially towards the end, but
that's part of the thing we were talking about the exhausting part of the album. Is there's hard so much of that, and it's like sometimes it's like that little loop. As soon as I mentioned it, I know that it went through your head.
Oh, I could hear it. Yep, I know.
It's like impossible to shut off. So that's why I'm calling it annoying. It's not like bad.
No,
but it's just like an annoying little
needling you.
Exactly.
So, but good overall. I like the tune.
That's good overall. Melody. And this has been getting more recent play on Sirius XMU. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a good track. I like it. And then this all first side A, I guess, of the if you're going vinyl, is pretty great. And I really like the slower song here that ends side A, Tell Me You Love Me.
This is another one of those slowcore kind of songs that builds and has a lot of electronic layers to it, but a good simple melody. My love, I've lost my faith in everything. And a very kind of simple melody, but I feel like it flows well from the previous songs. Like, it seems to tie together the same sort of I've lost my faith in everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wow. Okay.
How many of us felt that way this
past year? Totally.
At some point. So
totally. Right now, I could use a change of plans. When it all fails, what's the use of open hands? Can you tell me this love will last forever? I mean, really good lyrics here. I mean, they're really.
Oh, those lyrics are great. And then when it comes in with I'm gonna love you anyway.
Yeah.
And it comes in like a boom, like a powerful moment. So really is a powerful song, and makes side A is like really great. Like very fantastic. I think the middle of the album is where it gets a little muddled. The following track here, Die Happy.
Let's flip the record over to side B.
We'll flip it over to side B. Die Happy. It's a nice atmospheric piece. There's just one lyric though. So I want to die happy,
etc.
And this is what I was talking about, where it feels like a little bit of a bridge piece in an album.
Yeah, yeah.
Works better as a part of the piece than on its own, probably.
Yeah, that's more of a could have been instrumental. It could have just been sort of a kind of like I like the way you put a connector or something. I say some nice guitar on it though, and
Yeah.
at least there's some acoustic stuff that's kind of well done.
Yeah, a lot of this repetitive
Looping,
of the vocal
swooshing,
kind
and
of swooshing in the background.
yeah,
It's a nice piece. It's so far we don't have anything that
No.
I think any of us would call a skipper,
no,
and certainly I don't think in the whole album there's anything that I would call a dud.
no,
Now the next track here, I like this one too. It's Ativan,
which I looked up. Ativan
Yes.
is a pharmaceutical pill for anxiety. So it's a sedative for anxiety, which makes a lot of sense when you see the lyric. Is it all for something? Is it all part of the plan? Tranquilize me, sanitize me, Ativan.
Wow.
So he's talking to the pill or
yeah. And what is the pill?
And what is the pill? Right.
What does he want to tranquilize him?
That's right.
So
yeah,
I think we're onto something there.
We are. I think so.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. This one's a wordy.
Yes.
And it's maybe a little once again very dense, kind of,
tiring.
Layering, yeah. And I don't think there's any kind of like that's not an issue. It's starting to build up with a lot of these over and over and over, with a lot of samples and little loops and stuff, and you start to get a little
overwhelmed or kind of tired.
Tired with it.
But I like it. It's. What do you think of the line? Caught up in the baby's breath, I shit my pants and wet the bed. It takes me some time to throw the demons off, put the lotion in the closet, in the basket, now jump over the overpass.
Yeah. Wow. I always love shit in the bed. Shit the bed. I always love that phrase.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Really shit the bed on that one.
It's a good one.
Use it. It's funny. Yeah, great song. And then Ursa Major after that. I do like the line, for the beauty of the earth, it shows us wisdom, love, and rebirth. And I think that it's like more talking celestially.
And for the beauty of the earth is actually a hymn as well. For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the skies or something. It's actually another religious hymn. So there you go again. This one I was a little bit, I want to say I don't remember it very well. It's kind of, I want to say forgettable a little bit, kind of a electronic haze.
I think it just gets into this sort of like you get a little tired and it's hard to keep your focus.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few tracks that I lose focus on. I really, it was hard for me to pull up, what does this one sound like?
I know I had to listen to it a few times.
Yeah.
But I did think of something for our Beatle fans here. Are you thinking of a certain Paul McCartney song from Press to Play? Ursa Major.
Ursa Major. Boy. That one, you would have talked dud.
That's a dud. So that was the first thing I thought when I saw Ursa Major. I thought Ursa Minor.
Yeah, this is a better Ursa Major.
It's better than Paul's.
Ursa Minor.
Definitely better than that.
And then Landslide, I like Landslide. It's pretty great. It's particularly got this great little backwards guitar solo on that track.
Yes, and any song where you can use the word anaphylaxis is a pretty good one. And then it's later on a phantom synapsis. I mean, it's really good, like clever turns of phrase. I like this one. You got me caught in a landslide. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. My love is a wave. So it's at the risk of sounding like a Confucian.
You can tell from his lyrics that he's no idiot.
No, hardly.
It's using
sophisticated
language, and he obviously knows a lot about the Bible.
Yeah,
and he obviously knows a lot about a lot of different things. So that is the end of the first album, basically. Yes. And most of the time, Dave, in our preparation for this, I was like done.
it's already exhausting because each song roughly runs for over 4 minutes, probably, or generally, like they're pretty long songs, so it's tiring.
Yeah, long, dense tunes.
Yeah.
But good. There's nothing in there I don't like, and there's a couple of samples here that annoy me. But generally, I feel like we're in pretty good shape here. And then we get to this second disc here, Dave, and I think there's in the first few tracks there's a little bit of a
lull.
Gilgamesh is probably the best of these three. They're very ethereal. Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
A ton of atmospheric sounds, a ton of like pitter patters.
And something cool, some quotation in here. The song by Roy Orbison, Only the Lonely.
Yeah.
That's in here too. Only the lonely. It sort of reminds me of, it's sung in a way that sort of reminds me of Roy Orbison, or kind of in the background. But yeah, this one's okay. I've never read Gilgamesh. I'm not big on my medieval English.
I
don't know.
Mesopotamian era heroes.
Not
nor am I. I looked it up. Even if you look up the Wikipedia article on Gilgamesh, good luck trying to parse.
Pretty complicated.
From that, he's picking to put into this. I couldn't personally piece together what line he's trying to draw from that to this album and this song. Maybe that's a failure of us of not being able to figure it out.
If anybody knows, you can put it in the comments and let us know what
for sure.
If you could translate Gilgamesh, give us the interpretation here.
These three songs here are probably the place where I think is the most criticisms and some of the more negative reviews. Which, by the way, the negative reviews aren't even that negative.
No.
They're like 7, or 6.5 at worst.
If you do a Metacritic, there's only one that's below 70. So it's pretty good.
And I'd say that that's pretty accurate on track with how this album is. In the criticisms, it was like too distant and too removed. And I think all three of these tracks are a little like, I'm not really 100% sure what he's trying to get at here.
So Death Star,
Death Star and Goodbye to All That to me are the same song.
I think so too. Yeah, I couldn't distinguish them very well.
Well, they keep doing this "I'm Your Ticket Tonight" vocal sample.
Yeah,
throughout both of them, so that definitely links them. They have the same beat.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, musically.
And the second one having the same beat as the first one makes it, I think, takes something away from the first one personally. I kind of don't like either of them because of it. I like the first one better than I like the second one. The first part of it, the Death Star.
Yeah.
And Death Star, it's like a really removed lyrics that kind of like go over each other. Death Star,
trash talk, violent.
Yeah, you're kind of like not quite catching what he's saying. Kind of.
Yeah, trailing off. Kind of.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think that these two songs sort of blur together.
Yeah. Death Star has that lick. Dee, 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 do, 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 do. And of course, the Death Star. Now, for Star Wars fans, obviously, the Death Star is, the big villain's big ship, right? A celestial body. They're seeing that as a sign of their, like, who they think is their god, kind of. So it's interesting.
Did you mention God again?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if that's his thinking there, but I just found that interesting because I'd seen recently kind of that Mandalorian episode where all this is brought up of like, well, it depends on what side you're on here. If you're on this side, then you think this, which is kind of how things are in America right now.
Well, it is, yeah.
Like if you're on one side, you think somebody's the worst person you've ever seen, and if you're on the other side, it's like he's our hero,
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure. I'm bringing that up, but I don't have no answers.
Yeah, I have no ambiguous.
And I think he's maybe purposely left a lot of this so ambiguous that you can't kind of penetrate it to some extent. So goodbye to all that. The second part of that's probably my least. This is where I'm really running on fumes.
So you need some sugar, don't you?
Yeah. Now sugar is great.
Yes.
I really like this one. Very slow build starting this one. Keeps bringing it. It's like it's bringing in another instrument and another instrument.
Building again.
Building again. And I think it's a good 3 minutes in when the lyrics kick in. But before that, it kicks in this great little keyboard turnaround, like ding ding. That little lick, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Love it. Just
real
like
catchy.
Oh yeah.
Only Sufjan could take really cliche lyrics and make them sound cool and hip, like singing something, "Come on, baby, give me some sugar."
Yeah.
Or "Is someone gonna cut me some slack?"
Oh yeah. Great opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
There.
Now that it's 9:45, "Come on, baby, give me some sugar." Don't make me wait. Don't make me wait too long. Don't make me sing the sad song. "Come on, baby, give me some sugar."
Yeah.
It works. Probably.
Who's he asking to give him some sugar too, Dave?
Well, I don't know. We don't know. But to me, this is one of the more commercial sounding or more pop hook type songs.
We mentioned this build up, and then as soon as the lyrics click in, it fades off.
Yeah.
It's like they take all that build away and they fade it off, and we're getting like a really getting the vocals here. Whereas in the Death Star, like I said, you could barely make out what the lyrics
happening.
are. You really have to read your inner sleeve to figure it out. And this one, you are right there with the lyrics. And then when we get into that "don't make me wait" stuff, now we start to build up again. So I really think that the dynamics of this one works really well and makes for a great. And now I'm like back in.
It picks up. It's right at the end of the side too.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's get to the end here. We got 2 more songs.
I listened to this on my vinyl copy every single time, David, except for last night. And last night I decided I'm gonna pop these on, and I'm gonna go Ultra HD through my Amazon Music, and it was a different experience. It really one major thing is maybe it's my setup. And for the sake of my neighbors downstairs, I have my bass kind of turned down. And I think that the Prophet and the Tempest instruments and stuff like that really nail that bass.
Yeah.
Really like punch you through. Well, this is one of the tracks where there's all these like little subtleties that like really like come out in the headphone kind of experience. So I would definitely say to all of you, like give it at least one listen in the headphones, because you're really going to pick out all these subtleties. Of course, the upcoming track there, you're going to get all kinds of great stuff.
A lot. Yeah.
And the but this one, that build up really comes out in there. Now comes the last side, Dave, and this is the title track.
Yes. It's long. It's got a lot of lyrics, and there's something kind of spiritual about this song. Now, obviously, you mentioned The Ascension is spiritual, but I think musically it's very spiritual sounding, and lyrically too. And the electronics don't bother me quite as, or don't seem as remote. I don't know.
It sounds the most like older Sufjan stuff,
like a song more,
like a song that's a personal reflection that he's sharing with us, sort of like all of Carrie and Lowell was.
Yes, good way to
and
put
the
it.
least like this impenetrable Death Star type stuff.
Yeah. Personal. I think that's maybe a good way to put it. That you've nailed it there.
Yeah, and it sounds the most reflective and the most at the end of something. It's almost like wrapping things up. It's The Ascension.
Yeah,
like
beautifully done. Yeah.
Beautifully done. Fantastic track. One of the top track. Probably my second favorite track on the album.
But I like how this ends with the question. He keeps saying, "What now? What now? What now?" So it's kind of like if Jesus is up in heaven, or if something has transformed or happened, well, now what? what does that mean? What do we do with that? Here, I need some help. I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
And
When you come to the end of something, a mother dying,
yeah,
and you get past the grief part of it, then what? You know, many other, or everything shuts down. Then what? You know, so I like that, the idea of that.
Yeah, it's a very personal questioning kind of song, which I think makes it even more powerful. But yeah, great tune, great music, good production, which leads well into the final 12 and a half minutes, or 12 minutes 50 seconds of America.
Now this was famously released on July 4th, 2020.
Yeah.
And this track dropped, and
my birthday.
We found That's your birthday, Dave?
July 4th. Yeah.
I never knew this.
Yes.
Your birthday's July 4th.
And he did that, and then he wrote 4th of July from Carrie and Lowell. So
that's true.
Another song. So yeah, I'm born on the 4th of July.
Yeah. Well, wonderful, Dave. That movie's about you?
It is. Yeah, I fought in Vietnam and everything.
Wow. I'm gonna have to start sending you a hot dog on a bun. Or
please do. I know. If you send me a veggie dog,
I'll send you a veggie book.
Yeah, send me a veggie dog. I'll eat it for sure.
America, Dave. Just an absolutely fantastic piece of work. This is where it's like someone called him a pop composer. Rather than just a songwriter, you know, and I think that this is one of these examples of that. Impossible Soul, which I brought up earlier, is another example of that. You know, for the people who've just heard Chicago, I don't quite understand the real like magic of Sufjan Stevens is a piece like this, which I think is just like a wonderful piece.
It's a production. Yeah.
The vagueness in this one really kind of like really works to me, because it's like, he's talking about America. Who don't do to me what you did to America? Who is he asking that to?
Yeah. That's something I like about it, is it's not political in a way that's off-putting to somebody who may not be on your side. It's not saying I hate Trump, I hate Biden, or you Democrats or anything. It's asking a lot of questions and kind of laying it out. It's continuing that trend of the ascension of being kind of open and personal, saying, I have loved you, I have grieved, I am ashamed to admit that I no longer believe. I've loved you, I've received, I've traded my life for a picture of the scenery. Don't do to me what you did to America. So, and meanwhile, you've got all this religious symbols here, like the sign of the cross, and I have worshipped, I have cried, tasted the blood, choked on the waters of the floods, Judas and heat, all these sorts of images that it did feel. I mean, I think we all feel that from last year. It did feel like there was kind of a biblical, well, we did have we still have a pandemic. I mean, a pestilence or some kind of a thing happening, in a crisis of faith, a crisis of everything.
Is he saying he doesn't believe anymore, or is he saying ashamed that for a while he hasn't believed?
Yeah.
Or is he saying that he does believe, but he's grappling with it? We're not 100% sure. So I think that's beautiful, because I think that's how some of us are grappling with that about other things that we believe in, like maybe America itself.
Yeah.
Do we think it's working? Do we think it's like working but majorly flawed? Or do we steadfastly believe in it, and how dare you say anything bad about it? You know,
exceptionalism. Yeah.
So it just brings up a lot of those issues personally for each of the listeners, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious though, who do you think is you? So don't do to me what you did to America. Is it God? Kind of.
I think probably, but because he's once again talking about like I'm ashamed to say I don't believe, and things of that nature. Perhaps this album is a farewell to his Christianity, which is I've never considered until just now. But if he's saying the ascension, maybe he's like letting his beliefs go.
Let it go. Yeah.
Like,
up into the sky. Yeah.
and I don't want to certainly put that on him, but
No.
I think it's just wonderfully opaque enough. We can fill in the blanks for ourselves, or we can not fill in any of the blanks if we don't want to think about it. Part of the overwhelmment of this album is having yourself to get into your own religious beliefs.
Yeah.
Is a difficult thing that most people don't want to even
No. No.
deal with. Like,
No.
I don't want to think about that.
Right.
Even people who go to church, they want to go to church and they want to go home
And just be done. And I did my thing.
I punched in my clock, and I want to actually
yeah.
have to think about in real depth what
Yeah.
I truly believe in and why. And
Yeah.
do I just believe because my parents believed, or do I,
And he doesn't make it easy for us because it's a very long and tiring song as well to get through, especially like we talked about way back in the early, or beginning of the episode about the how many minutes is
there's 4 minutes
of
and 30 seconds of ambient fading,
static fade out,
kind of like a sonic ascension, really.
Yeah.
At the very end, you'll notice the music gets lighter and sort of more friendly. So it could be that last minute or so is in heaven.
It lifts and goes.
Because it just sort of is like gentle and kind of a lot more peaceful the last sort of minute of it. Whereas the few minutes before that are very like some dangerous sounds and some dissonance and some things of that nature. So
there's a Wilco song that ends their album Yankee Hotel Foxtrot called Reservations. That's also, I want to say, almost 15 minutes or something like that. And yes, about the last 6 or something, a long segment is just kind of static sound. And usually people turn off the album by that point. But in this case, it's a good cap. I mean, if you look at the whole album, it's a good closer. This is, you kind of all has been building up to this, I think, in a way.
The other part of this song I wanted to talk about was like, I like when, and he's done this in a couple of the other pieces that I really like, is Christmas Unicorn being one of them, and which is a don't do me what you did to America, and then in the background you come in with don't to me what you did to yourself. And it's sort of like a call and response kind of thing
with himself.
The background vocals are kind of like giving you a new thought.
Yeah.
And he's just so brilliant to be able to do that.
It's good stuff. And I think a lot of the most interesting art doesn't hit you over the head with its meaning. It makes you want to come back to it and then keep thinking about it. And you walk away thinking, oh, well, I'm thinking about this a little differently now, or maybe I should do more reading, or maybe, what is America? What you start thinking about these things. So
I think what we're saying, Dave, is it's a complicated, dense, at times tiring album. By no means is it a bad album. It's mostly a good to great album. However, we had a career episode about Velvet Underground, and we were talking about the second Velvet Underground album, White Light, White Heat, and that's a great album, but it's not the one that you want to grab and pop on
for an intro.
If you've got your choice, you usually go with the Velvet Underground or the first one, or Loaded even. I think when I'm grabbing Sufjan albums, I might grab a simpler album like Seven Swans or something like that over this super complicated, super dense, have to think about it.
It's a commitment.
Close your eyes and put those headphones on.
Right. This may be, I was telling you before we started this episode about a friend of mine who said, well, Sufjan's gotten, it's a little bit more pretentious. And I can see how that being thrown at this type of an album, because it is such a huge work, and it's very, one could say it's self-indulgent in a way, because it's just him, and it's like a lot of experimental things. But I think to do that, you're missing a lot of the point, and you're missing a lot of the orchestrational touches and the thematic connections and kind of how it all fits together, which is really a well-crafted piece.
Yeah.
as well as having some moments of just, wonderful listening, as well as some confusing moments. It's a whole experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely give it a thumbs up. I don't know that we're going to do ratings on this, like
Yeah.
a number or something like that. It's a little bit.
It's hard to do that.
Ratings
Yeah.
are reductive, Dave.
Yeah,
Lists
they are
and
reductive.
ratings.
We'll just say
cut to us doing lists.
Yeah, it's definitely worth your
episode.
while to check out, especially if you've had some experience with his music and you know anything about him. I think you'll find it really gripping eventually. It doesn't get you right away.
Yeah.
It took me a while.
At first I was like, oh no, we picked the
I know. What are we
album.
doing here?
What are we doing? I think that was more from our personal, like, oh, that's a lot of work here.
Yeah.
Let's make jobs easier on ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's pick
Didn't we have a 5-song Ringo EP we could have just talked about?
Yeah. So but definitely check it out. Once again, the beautiful cover art. And I think he's a wonderful artist. I am always eager to see what he's going to do next. I wasn't expecting a apparently very long instrumental piece to be his next thing, but it's definitely a different vibe than this, and I feel like what he does after that's definitely going to be different.
Super creative. So yeah.
The only one other thing I wanted to mention was so I had tickets to see the Carrie and Lowell tour in Milwaukee, and my now wife was supposed to go with me, and she couldn't go, so I was like, should I just go up there? And then I was like, you know what, I will. So I went up. I'd already bought the hotel anyway, so I went up. I check into the hotel. And I'm like looking, and I'm like, is that the Chicago Bulls? The Chicago Bulls were staying in the same hotel as me. They were playing a playoff game that night. So, and I had tickets, but the concert didn't start till like 9 or something. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go to this Bulls game. So I walk over, I buy tickets off the street off a guy, one ticket, and I go in and I watch the Bulls, and then it goes to overtime. And I'm like, I'm gonna miss that concert. So I leave the Bulls game.
Oh no.
In overtime. They ended up winning. So I felt like, okay, they won. So that's fine. I saw most of the game. And this is the last year that they had they were in the playoffs with Derrick Rose. That was the last year of that. So I like walk over, and then I go in, and the concert has started, but it's only a couple songs in. And I sit, and Carrie and Lowell, it did have some of these elements, some of this Tempest, some of that kind of stuff in the concert. And it pulled a lot of the older tracks that he had and sort of did them in a way that sort of all meshed together. And I felt like this was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. Went just by myself, just sat there and was just mesmerized the whole time. There's a track on Carrie and Lowell called Blue Bucket of Gold. And at the end of the track, that it starts the lights sort of go out, and it starts this sort of like swirling thing that was like, it was just an intense experience because it built up for like building up Sonics, like we were talking. It did that for like what seemed like 10 minutes, and it just like kept getting more and more intense to the point where you're like, is my heart gonna explode here? I'm like gonna be able to take this. So that whole concert, I think, is in a video somewhere that you can watch, or I think there's a live album streaming from that.
There is.
I'd highly recommend it. Very, very excellent concert. But I think that might be an actual bridge from the Carrie and Lowell album to this. If you were super shocked by the transition into the electronic beat kind of feel of this, I think that they had started working that into his live shows. I'm certainly never going to miss another live show of his.
I was going to say, if whenever, I'm sure he wants to go out and play again with this whole album and as well as everything else. So hopefully next time he comes around, I'll definitely do it. Maybe if he's ever in Chicago and I can get up there, that would be perfect to go see him.
We'll
together.
Do it live from the
Where would he play? What would be a good spot for him to play normally?
I think he might have played Chicago Theater last time.
That may be, that's what I would think. Yeah.
It generally is pretty good venue for artists of his level.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into like United Center level,
Too big.
I'm almost out.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'd rather see somebody at a Chicago
Smaller
theater or smaller venue, or
Mhm.
he's certainly past like the Lincoln Halls of the world, you know.
He's
But
not playing the bars.
he's not. Yeah, he's not playing the smaller venues. But
No.
yeah, wonderful artist and
Yeah.
a pretty good album.
Very
like
fun.
maybe my sixth favorite album of his, but it's still a thumbs way up. So
yeah.
you know,
Definitely.
so yeah,
Cool.
So we'll be back again with another song. And obviously subscribe if you like the show, and like and comment below, and argue with each other if you want.
Argue with us. Yeah.
Argue with us. Call us idiots.
Yep.
Guess what? You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's my response.
That works. We'll take
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Guess what? Music appreciation is subjective. So if we said something that you thought was stupid, then it was stupid. You're right,
That's right.
and we are not right. But we'll continue with more of these. I really enjoyed this one, Dave.
Me
I was
too.
scared to death.
I'm exhausted
ago.
right now. I feel like I need a drink, but but it was really interesting to get into, and I think there's just so much to go back to on this album, and makes me want to go back and explore some of his earlier music too.
Yeah, me too. So we'll be back to you next time with a song or a album or a career.